Welcome everybody to tonight's Startup Stories event. Today we have an exciting topic, startup solutions for a sustainable future. And we will hear from two ETH spin-offs, CLIMEWORKS and EXNATON, how they are contributing to a more sustainable future. And we believe that this is super important for new innovations and new startups as a topic.
I would like to hand over the word to Liliane Ableitner. She completed her PhD at ETH and was working at the research project of Quartierstrom, which later became then EXNATON AG.
Hi everyone, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well.
All right, perfect. So thank you for the warm introduction. My name is Liliane. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a Zurich-based cleantech startup with an unpronounceable name. But before we get to that, I'd like to share my personal story with you. So let's get back in time and see how I started my career as an entrepreneur. The first time I came in touch with the idea of entrepreneurship was when I was 13 years old. Back then, I would sit in a suburban train in Munich, my hometown, with two of my best friends. We were joking around just like young teenagers do, and one of them asked us what we wanted to do when we were old. Back then, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. But my friend Samuel, however, had a plan for my career and told me very convincingly, Lily, one day you will open up your own airport and manage it. Well, I did not exactly build my own airport, but I'm still standing here today, having founded my own company and feeling overwhelmed about this invitation to this great event and about sharing my story with you. So thank you for having me today. So what happened instead? I started working part-time at the age of 16 in parallel to school and did part-time freelancing in parallel to my information system studies in Germany. The opportunity to do a PhD brought me to Switzerland, or more precisely here to ETH. I was being placed in a really cool research project in which a few other PhD students and I built a peer-to-peer microgrid for Swiss Town. This is when and where I met my current co-founders and when we decided to found our startup after having graduated. Today, we rethink the energy sector, making the best out of data, apps, and latest digital technologies. We've built a stable technology platform, serving first customers with our software, have raised external investment, and my co-founder and I, we are featured on the Forbes ZHAW 30 under 30 list of 2020. Today, I'm not here to talk about what we do and how successful we are. Side note, talking about that is actually a big part of being an entrepreneur. What I want to share with you today is what we learned from our experience over the last 18 months. You always say you should prepare 3 points for a good presentation. From my experience, entrepreneurship is all about learning, teamwork, and motivation. So let's start. Learning number 1, never stop learning. What seems to be funny at first sight, is there anything we can learn from this gift? We all fall, we all make mistakes. Key is how to deal with failure, as we can actually learn a lot from it. This person in that GIF learn to stand up and continue. So allow your co-founders and your employees to make mistakes. Encourage them to learn from them and encourage them not to make the same mistake twice. In that regard, you have to create a positive culture for openly discussing mistakes that happened. In a fast-changing world like today's, and especially in the tech sector, you have to challenge almost everything you thought you knew. This means you have to establish structures for testing your hypothesis, just like researchers do. You don't have to do it with the same rigor, but you should try to collect data to help you make decisions. Do people really need your product? The earlier you experiment with real users, the less time you waste on the wrong path. In that context, there is a saying, you should be ashamed of your first prototype when it goes live. Otherwise, you've waited too long to get user feedback. So, if you fail with your product, fail fast. One way to learn is to make use of the amazing startup ecosystem around here in Switzerland and beyond. Experienced people are actually very much willing to help you, but you have to know what you're asking for. Don't just set up useless meetings with the words, I want to get to know you, but more like, I realized you're an expert in topic X. I think your input on our current situation would be super helpful for us. Would you have 15 minutes? who would then turn you down? Another great strategy to learn is by speaking to other founders and by sharing experiences. So to sum up this point, a startup is all about learning. And I'd like to quote the Swiss and British philosopher Alain de Botton here. Anyone who isn't embarrassed by who they were last year probably isn't learning enough. Learning number 2, your team is everything. If I know one thing for sure today, there is no way of founding a startup alone. You really need a team. Just like I have asked my 2 dear old school friends to help me out with the speech today. In fact, we had a fun night on gifts. Your co-founders are there for you to balance out potential shortcomings you might have. Every person is a superhero, while no one is perfect. Know your superhero powers and shortcomings and respect each other's roles, perspective, and priorities. You will discover many situations in which you disagree with each other. In that regard, I can only recommend you to talk about arising internal conflict as soon as possible. In my opinion, the best thing would be having your first fight before you having found the startup. That way you discover whether the 2, 3, or 4 of you can actually solve internal conflicts and how everyone reacts in a critical situation. The worst thing is founding a startup with the wrong people. Just imagine you have invested all your savings and you're tied to that person, which you are definitely latest at the point when you have raised external investment. By the way, also know that investors invest in teams and not in single persons. Later on, you will discover your startup is not only about your co-founders, but all about the members of your team, or more precisely, your employees. I once learned in a class for startup CEOs that you should give the following prioritization to a startup: team, customers, investors. The causality of this is actually quite simple. If a team member does not feel well, stressed out by too high workload or emotional stress, there is no way the person's performance is satisfying. This in turn affects your product and your customer satisfaction. And the least thing you want is investors hearing about unhappy customers. We stand up to this principle in our startup to 100%. And I'd rather tell my customer I need 2 more days to deliver than starting this chain reaction. I do this not because I want to make everyone happy. I believe in self-motivation. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to create an amazing work environment in which our employees get inspired and thrive. So how do you do that? How do you create an amazing work experience in times of Corona? We have created our own virtual office space in which we work together. On top of that, we have fixed daily meetings like a morning check-in and a coffee break. And in the coffee break, you're not allowed to talk about work. You can't imagine how this new digital experience has impacted our team collaboration. So to sum up this point, entrepreneurs have to manage superheroes, conflicts, and employees. Learning number 3, startup life really is a roller coaster. I'm sure you've heard about it, but I guess most soon-to-be entrepreneurs totally underestimate the emotions that come with this roller coaster. One day, you feel like a king or a queen, having received the most amazing feedback from customers or investors. You get lots of energy out of this and think having founded a startup was the greatest idea of your life. Why do not all people found their own companies? The next day, a potential customer literally tells you what you're working on is shit. Well, if you get that kind of feedback, at least you can be thankful for an honest opinion. What is more likely is the following case. You meet up with a potential customer, present your product or service, and they tell you it's great. And you never hear back from them. Emails and telephone calls from your side are being ignored. And this is when you know that your product is not so good, but they didn't have the guts to tell you. So feedback is important and can be the most rewarding thing, but it can also demotivate you. In that regard, you sometimes might have to filter out feedback from non-believers. Motivation is key. Being optimistic is key. You are in the driver's seat of your startup. You have to get out of bed every morning and fight hard for your vision. And you only succeed if you are optimistic. If you don't love your product, no one else will. Not your employees that are building it, not your customers, not your investors. Do you see the causality here again? So one of the greatest things about being entrepreneur for me is that you really feel the direct impact of your actions. If you are successful, you know that it was the achievement of you and your team, unlike in a huge company where all the different effects are so entangled that you don't get this direct feedback. So to sum that up, entrepreneurship is a hell of a ride. Feedback, optimism, and the sensation of feeling impact will bring you to live your dream. For me personally, there is nothing that could motivate me more. Coming back to the start, our startup is called Aishnaton, named after the Egyptian pharaoh who put the sun above all gods. By building new energy experiences, we are motivating people to actively fight for climate change. This way, we contribute to renewable energy, to the reduction of CO2 emissions, and to sustainability. I figured out, after all, this was way better than building my own airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliane. I totally believe you that you had lots of fun in searching for the animated pictures for your presentation. And that's all about it, right? Having fun in what you do. So before we will to the second speaker, I want to remind you that we will open the discussion roundtable after all the speeches. So we invite now Daniel Egger from CLIMEWORKS. Daniel holds a master's degree from ETH and is responsible for marketing and sales. He will tell us how it is to work for an extremely rapid growing startup.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. The next couple of minutes, I will take you through, Liliane, I will take you through a roller coaster with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of failures, some successes, and I hope I can give you a practical insight on how it is to work with a startup. First, I would like to briefly say what we're doing. CLIMEWORKS is building machines which are capturing carbon dioxide out of the air. And what you can see here is our newest machine. This machine we're just now setting up in Iceland. This machine captures around 4,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. So now we know how many trees you need to plant for one collector. So you can also do the math. This machine will be commissioned in a couple of weeks. So soon we will see this plant in operations, and then hopefully not get too many bad surprises, which is also a part of the startup life. But let us take through my personal roller coaster at CLIMEWORKS. It started a bit more than 3.5 years ago in sales. But with this slide, I would like to take you a bit further back in our history. This slide was done somewhere in 2009, 2010 by our two co-founders, Jan and Christoph. They made a plan. This is normally what you do at the beginning. You're making a plan. Already when you're making the plan, you know that what you see in front of you is never going to happen. So why are you making a plan? You need to have a target. You need to have a vision where you're heading to. And with every step you're making, you need to see if you're going towards your target, you're going away, do you reach your target or not? And what is important here is always to see why is something working or why is something not working. When we look at this plan from 2021 backwards, we see what went good and what not. These are very important learnings, and this you need to do. Christoph, one of the co-founders, always said, if you don't have a plan, you know you will reach nothing. And if you have a plan, then you know in which direction you need to move. And I think this is the important point. You set yourself a North Star in which direction you're going to walk. You also need to have beliefs. You need to have assumptions. You need to have an idea what customers like. When I started at CLIMEWORKS 2017, we believed that CLIMEWORKS needs to sell plants, huge plants, a lot of plants. The two pictures you see here are the products we try to sell. I'm honest with you, I didn't sell a single one of them. Didn't work. It was a great idea. We believed in it, but no success. That's a part of it. That was a bad day on our journey on the roller coaster. So in the upcoming years, we tried out a lot of different things. We had a lot of great ideas what we would like to do. So we started selling beverage grade CO2 to Coca-Cola. Great customer. Liliane, you said one day you have a high, next day probably not anymore. You get good feedback from a customer, sometimes not. Same here. I mean, you can announce that you have Coca-Cola as a customer. How cool is that? The problem was it's so far still the only one for beverage grade CO2. So a product we really liked, but maybe not the customers. So we tried it with labels. So the product using our CO2 is more expensive. Then maybe we should hand over the cost to the customers. Great idea. Nobody beside us believed in that, so didn't work. We tried many other things. There were a lot of great ideas. Some worked, others not. But most of the ideas did not work, and this is part of the game. And you have to live with that. It is a lot about try out new things. Have the courage to go out there and test it, to get the feedback, to ask for the feedback. And this is something very important, because just because you believe it's good, the customer does not believe it. And at the end of the day, it's the customer who makes the decision. And you also see this trial period went between 2017 and 2019. It's a long time. And you might be out there with a great idea. People love it. You get a lot of good feedbacks, but you don't get signatures below the contracts. That's a part of the deal. But if you believe in it, and that's also what Liliane said, when you believe it, you need to believe it, and then sooner or later you're also going to sell it. And I think this is an important learning. We were in the good situation that at a certain point we had the first successes. One product, or the first product which worked, was our web shop. There we are selling our products directly to private people. When we launched it, we had no clue in which direction it went. Stephen, who created the web shop, did a lot of different simulations, and I asked him, Stephen, what do you believe? He said, no clue. He did a lot of research, but at the end, you don't know if it works or not. You need to try it out. And then something strange happened. It worked. We got the first customers who liked it. We got the first subscriptions. And I remember the day when we have been in the office and we were standing together, and then we realized we are starting selling our product. And you cannot imagine how this feeling was, that people start to believe in what you're doing. They believe that what you're producing you can sell. And this momentum is extremely positive and extremely important. Then we also had our first successes last year with bigger corporates. We could announce cool deals with great companies. And this gives a lot of courage to your people that what they're doing can have success. And believing in the success is extremely important. Christoph has a nasty question. When you meet him in the office, he asks you, Daniel, how do you look today? What he want to hear is that I'm telling you, I'm looking like the guy selling our products. You need to believe in it. When you get up in the morning, you need to have a look at the mirror and say, I'm the guy doing this job. And this is important. And as long as you do not believe it yourself, the others can also not believe it. So this is something very important. So some key takeaways from the sales guy. You might have great ideas and you might love it. Also, the people around you might love it and say, hey, you're going to sell them without any problems. Just go out there. But not everyone might like it. And also when they say, I like it, if they don't buy it, you don't sell it. So this is something which is very important. Just because you believe you have a good idea, this does not mean that it is a good idea. And this is why you need to test your products in the market. You need to get feedback, and you need to get feedback very soon. You need to try out different things in parallel to see how they behave in parallel of each other. So you say which one might be more successful, which might attract your target segment better or not that good, and where you have gaps. What kind of features the people like in one product, and which kind of features they don't like in the other product, how you combine it. And you need to test. You need to test out in the market. What is also very important is that your first customer might not be the customer which you're scaling with. The first customer, normally, they like to try out new things. For them, it is attractive that it is new, but it has to be new. He must be the first one who can buy it. And this can be attractive. But with this customer, you're not going to scale. It might be that your very first customer at a certain point will not be the customer of your future. You need to say goodbye to him. They have probably given you the greatest feeling of success, but at a certain point you realize that to continue, you better go away, and that you try a new setup. This is important, and these are also strong feelings which you might have in your career. And then what's also important, and this is normally when you talk to successful startups, then everything seems very clear and very straightforward, and just successes. It is just when you're looking back. I was a couple of months ago. I was talking to the former head of Europe from Tesla, and he was only telling me the nice stories of all the cars he sold. And then I asked him, how many calls did you have without success to get this single one buying the product? Most of the calls you have are not successful. So don't let you demotivate by failures. They're just showing you how you can improve, but you need to improve. To end my short keynote, I would like to say something which already Bill Gates said. People overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. What do I want to say with this? You will see on your startup roller coaster that you go down, that you have hard times, and that you might not reach your annual targets. But the long-term targets you have, stick to them and try to reach them, because you can reach a lot when you really try and go for it. So I hope I could give you a short insight into the sales life of a startup guy. I can tell you it's not always easy, but most of the time it's a lot of fun, and that's also important. Thank you.
With this, we, in the name of Startup Campus, powerful consortium which supports your entrepreneurial way, we want to wish you a nice evening, and we hope that we see you at our next events. Thank you for joining.